The other thing that was happening at this time was this change in my own personal life. And that, like I've talked about the fact that I was raised in a Christian home. I was kind of like, I was raised in Catholicism, and I'm not a Catholic anymore. And, but I am a very strong Christian now. Uh, but I grew up, I mean, I went to parochial schools, Catholic schools, pretty much until I was in high school. And we moved to Arizona after my dad died, and I finished high school there. And but the bottom line was, in in '92. That's in March of '92. That's when basically the poop hit the fan. And I was confronted by my wife with adultery. And not only did I end up coming clean, but it led me to a place where I didn't even think I was going to go. I mean, it so affected my life. The realization that I had, hurt the person I love the most out of totally selfish reasons. Um, it killed me. I mean, it's kind of, and I expected, I really did. I expected that I had just lost the most precious thing in my life.
Right.
Not to mention the fact, the stability and the future of my children. I mean, I had been totally selfish. And again, part of my angst about going back to work for Vince, and Vince putting me back on the road, was it's kind of like, if you want to stop drinking, stay out of the bar.
Yes.
Well, the road was danger, and it wasn't like I didn't feel, I didn't feel threatened at the time. But it's kind of like, it's kind of like, if there, you don't want to have any threat. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, if you just don't go there, you stay as far away from that as you possibly can. If you knew it was danger. And that was, and again, I didn't have that conversation with Vince, but I should have actually. And when I went back to work for him eventually, and did have the conversation, he said, Ted, you know what I would have told you? He said, he says, you know what? I've been there too.
Wow.
He says, I've been there too. That's all he said. And he said, so I would have understood.
Man, a lot of guys never really reach that realization or that point in their lives, and it's there's more on the line than just breaking up a marriage. It's
Yeah.
like homes get sold. Divides are created between parents and their children as a result of this sort of thing.
Right.
Like this is huge, huge shockwaves can get put through your life as a
Yeah.
result of you just wanting some temporary satisfaction. And
Yeah.
so, man, Ted, awesome story, and I'm glad that you're willing to share this stuff on the podcast. It's deeply personal,
Yeah.
so I think it's fantastic stuff that you pulled the nose up.
And yeah. And then eventually it led me to, I remember the guy who was there for me from the beginning was, his name is Hal Santos. He's he's still a minister, but he's not pastoring the church anymore. He's like, you know 65 now. And you don't ever quit ministry altogether. But anyway, he was the guy. And that's another long story about how he and I met, and how he stayed in touch with me over the years. And periodically he would call me and, hey Ted, how you doing? And in my darkest hour, he's the guy that I turned to. And he's the guy that brought myself and my wife to St. Louis. His church was across the river in Fairview Heights, Illinois. And it was just, it's, we could have a whole podcast about that. I mean,
I think we should at some point.
you know, we I ended up going to this. He had scheduled this event that he was taking all of his youth group to in Chicago. It's 500 miles north of St. Louis, and they called it the Ascension Convention. And so he said, Melanie, I want you and Ted to go along with us. And at that point, I'm going to do anything. I want my wife to know how badly I, how much I realized what I had put at risk and how I had just, been so callous. And so we go there and we go in this ballroom. It's like 1,500 teenagers. And they're I mean they're all that's the demographic at the time of pro wrestling. It's like I walk in here, I have a highlighted blonde hair. Like, there's DiBiase, there's the $1 million man. What's he doing here? And make a long story short, the speaker that day was a guy named Reggie Babbs, and it was like as he was speaking, I felt like he'd been reading my book, and it was like he gave an invitation. He said, if you're tired of living a lie and you know you need Jesus, then I challenge you to get out of that chair and come forward now. I beat every kid in the building to the front of the room. I didn't just go forward. I hit my knees. I put my face in the carpet and I cried like a baby. I didn't care what a soul on earth thought at that moment. And it was a changing moment in my life. And it was like, you know what, God, uh, I don't deserve it. I want your mercy. I want you to know now, you're at the helm of the ship. I don't even know where the ship's going anymore, but you lead me. Now, my wife witnessed all this, and what she did, when she came to me, she said, uh, you know, I don't know if I'm strong enough to do it, but I serve a God of restoration, not divorce. And for whatever reason, God is telling me to give you another chance. She said, Ted, I'm going to try. I might not last a week. I might not last a month. She says, only time will tell. And just know, I'm not doing it for you because I'm doing it more out of obedience to God. And of course, she was still obviously very hurt and very angry. And that's what I told her. I said, they said, you'll give me this chance. I'll become the man you thought you married. I'll become the spiritual leader of my home. And one day, God, you know, willing, I'll regain your trust and respect. So now we've been married for over 42 years, but that was a defining moment in my whole life. I eventually went from that to, and as these things, even while, the whole thing when going back to work for Vince, I had started to go out and speak in churches. I would go and give what they call it, sharing your testimony.
Mhm.
And because of the popularity of wrestling and the name I had become, so to speak, within the wrestling industry, there were a lot of churches that were willing to bring me in so I could share my story. And that ended up being my whole life for a while. And it still is. I mean, I still get calls, to go to churches and to share with the congregation, a life changing story. So anyway,
I want to recommend to our listeners right now, Tubi. It's a free app you can get on your television or your phone, tablet, whatever. And it's got a documentary called "The Price of Fame" from 2017. Ted Jr. helped put it together. That's going to tell a big chunk of that story. But Ted, one day I would like for us to do an episode about
sure,
you, coming back to Jesus and learning from your mistakes. So
yeah,
we will cover it in depth at some point, folks.
okay.